Okay. Now I request Dr. Lima Yasmin to present your case. Lima, please.
Thank you, madam. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Respected chairperson, foreign faculties, my teacher, and my colleagues. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Lima Yasmin, working in Khulna Medical College and Hospital. Now I am going to start my case.
That's screen sharing. Please start screen sharing.
My patient, Mrs. X, 60 years, postmenopausal lady, para 5 from low socioeconomic condition, got admitted in Khulna Medical College and Hospital on 10th April 2021 with the complaints of lump in the lower abdomen for 3 months and pain for 2 months, anorexia, dyspepsia for 3 months, dysuria and constipation for 3 months. He had no family history regarding ovary, breast, endometrium, or colon cancer. On general examination, she is anemic, non-icteric, non-edematous. Her thyroid gland was not enlarged. No enlarged lymph node. Both breasts are normal on examination findings for her age. On abdominal examination, there is an irregular solid mass of about 12 into 15 centimeter, occupying part of right iliac, hypogastric, and umbilical region, with irregular surface, ill-defined margin, mobility restricted with tenderness, and lower limit is not approachable. On bimanual examination, solid, well-defined mass is felt through the anterior and lateral fornices with restricted mobility. No nodular deposits are found on pouch of Douglas. Rectal mucosa was free. Ultrasonography of whole abdomen shows right adnexal mass of about 11 into 12 centimeter.
Should we follow iota rules of ultrasonography routinely in an adnexal mass? Over to you, Giri sir. Sir?
Giri, Dr. Giri, you are supposed to answer.
Sir, you can answer.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I'll answer on the behalf of Dr. Giri. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Shahana Parveen for inviting me for this particular evening's session. Now, as far as iota rules are concerned, most of the time, a malignant ovarian tumor is very, very obvious on scan. But sometimes you may have a suspicious adnexal mass. These are the cases where you have to follow iota rules. In a frankly malignant tumor where you have obvious ascites, metastasis, I don't think you require any kind of rules. The diagnosis is obvious. But of course, whenever you have a suspicious mass, definitely you have to follow iota rules.
Next. What is the role of RMI or Roma in this type of adnexal mass?
Okay. Risk of malignancy index, I think you have RMI1, RMI2, and RMI3. Okay. It is based on various factors like menopausal status, serum CA125 value, and sonography findings. Whereas I think Roma is superior to RMI index because RMI index, in my view, it is very, very vague, not very accurate, and doesn't help us in clinical diagnosis. I would rather prefer Roma index, which is much more sensitive and specific for diagnosis of epithelial ovarian cancer. Here we use basically two markers, serum CA125 and serum HE4 and use a formula. And this formula, I think it is quite accurate in diagnosing a malignant epithelial ovarian tumor. It is much more superior to RMI index.
Sir,
Sir,
Uh,
I-
I like to add here somewhere regarding this is iota rule and RMA or Roma, but this tumor looks obviously malignant one. Most probably there is no role of either iota or RMA or Roma. So only ultrasound findings with if you can do something color Doppler study and the advanced the CT scan report can give a clue to your diagnosis. Mostly we are dealing with malignant ovarian.
sir, usually in resource limited setting, that is as it is a medical college hospital and periphery medical college hospital where it is a government hospital and all patients who are admitted here, they get their treatment free of costs and all that investigation, the facilities which are available in medical college hospital, only patient can bear that. In that situation, can it be here help us, sir? And HE4, it is not always available in all the
that's
centers.
no need. Most probably iota will be better, but this is a obvious malignant disease. Whereas we may not require anything else, any other investigation accepting this thing, and most probably if it can do a CT scan to know the extent of the disease, that is most important in this particular case. Most probably, this is my opinion. What we do in our place also.
Yeah, the problem comes
Now, what is your
whenever you have a suspicious adnexal mass. Okay, only then
Yeah.
you have to use all these rules.
Yeah, that's true.
Most
Yeah.
of the times, the diagnosis is very obvious
Yeah.
because most of these cases
You are
come
not-
in advanced
We can
stage.
hear you, sir. Sir, we
Can't
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Yeah, I can hear.
Yes, now it's
You hear me?
Yeah, I can
yes,
hear.
sir.
Okay. Okay, please
Next.
proceed.
Next.
Lima.
Unmute yourself. Unmute. Lima, unmute yourself.
Regarding her tumor markers, all her markers are within normal limit.
Pelvic mass, tumor markers in normal range. So, sir, how should we proceed?
Yeah.
Advanced image.
Yeah. Only we should go for a CT scan image, that is most important.
Sir,
It-
Professor Bhavna, you would like to
Yeah.
add something?
Tumor markers need not be raised in
Yeah.
all the patients. In stage one, obvious stage one, where disease is confined to the ovary, only 50% would have rise in CA125. In advanced ovarian cancer, almost 90% would have rise in CA125. That means 10% of even advanced ovarian cancers also did not have rise in CA125. So you cannot rely only on tumor markers.
I'd like to chip in
You have
here.
to use clinical judgment and imaging as well as tumor markers for diagnosing malignant ovarian tumor.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to chip in here. I'm Dr. Joydeep Ghosh. Sorry, because of the poor net connection, I am just sticking to audio. I completely agree with Dr. Giri and Dr. Bafna. And just like to add that for clear cell histologies, you might not have a tumor marker elevation even in the later stage. So it's not necessary that you need to have the tumor marker elevation.
Next, Lima.
In fact, I would like to add here, whenever you have an advanced ovarian cancer and you find tumor markers are normal, okay, these are the tumors, that means you are dealing with an aggressive tumor. Okay, actually in advanced ovarian cancer, you will find some rise in CA125. But if you find that CA125 values are normal, then I think it indirectly indicates that you are dealing with some kind of advanced ovarian malignancy, aggressive ovarian malignancy, like clear cell cancer.
Lima, please.
Okay.
Lima, carry on.
CT scan of whole abdomen shows mild, heterogeneously enhancing soft tissue mass in right adnexal region, no ascites, no lymphadenopathy.
So CT scan or MRI, which imaging appropriate for this case? Professor Bafna.
Yeah.
Over.
MRI scan is obviously better, but MRI scan for clinicians is much more difficult to read. CT scan, I find it very easy to read. CT scan, very, very easy, very friendly imaging tool. MRI scan, you have to be really trained because you have T1 weighted images, T2 weighted images, you have fat separation images, you have so many different kinds of images. So MRI scan for a clinician, it appears a bit difficult, but definitely MRI scan is superior to CT scan for diagnosing a suspicious malignant ovarian tumor.
Professor Giri, would you like to add something?
No, MRI is superior in a pelvic limited disease. If it is a advanced disease, perhaps CT scan is better because to know the extent of disease, to know the lymphatic status. Of course, now with the CT and MRI, they are having the both sensitivity almost same in detecting lymphatic status also. But CT scan will be cheaper and is accessible by, as Dr. Bafna told, everybody can read it and we can do treatment accordingly. So in my opinion, in ovarian tumor, if it is little advanced more than pelvic limited disease, perhaps CT scan will give the more information than MRI. This is my opinion. Bafna, what is your opinion?
Yeah, I agree with you. Only whenever you have a suspicious adnexal mass,
Yeah, that's true.
only then I think you have to do MRI scan. In advanced ovarian cancer, better to do a CT scan because you find it much easier to read the films. As a clinician, I find it much more easier. MRI scan bit confusing unless you are trained in reading MRI films. MRI scan is really difficult to read.
But sir, when we are confusing whether we can do the surgery, no ascites, but there is suspicious, it may be, and whether we can do the surgery. In that case, to see the resectability, the MRI would it not be the better for than CT, sir?
No, MRI scan is definitely better
Yes,
than CT scan because it is. I'm talking in practical aspects.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I don't depend only on the radiologists.
yes,
I have
sir.
to have my own judgment while operating,
Yes.
and you cannot base your decision whether the tumor is operable, whether the tumor is resectable or not, just based on CT scan or MRI scan. You have to have your own idea and your own clinical judgment to decide whether the tumor is resectable or not. So I normally prefer CT scan, but the radiologists definitely prefer MRI scan.
Rima.
We consulted with oncology department and they advised ultrasound-guided FNAC from ovarian mass, and it shows spindle cell tumor. The differential diagnosis were 6-cord stromal tumor or GIST, and they advised for open biopsy to confirm.
Sir, if it is your core biopsy, which one is recommended, sir? It's a big mass.
No, when the tumor is confined to the ovary, there's no need to do FNAC. There's no need to do core biopsy. What is the need to do FNAC?
Straightway surgery, straightway primary surgery, sir.
Yeah, that's true.
No, absolutely, there's no need to do FNAC or core biopsy. You can straight away go for surgery, primary surgery, because tumor is confined to the ovary. And then you can ask for frozen section if required. But there's no role for FNAC or core biopsy preoperatively.
FNAC and core biopsy will increase the stage if it is stage 1 disease, at least. It will increase the stage to stage, at least stage 1 C disease. So perhaps it is almost contraindicated. We should not do unless it is advanced disease when we are planning to go for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy. It is almost not indicated at all, FNAC.
Next.
Our management plan is counseling regarding the diagnosis, treatment option, proposed treatment, complications, prognosis, cost, and availability of the treatment. improvement of general condition with correction of anemia. Opinion with oncologist and general surgeon were done. Our plan is primary surgery.
So, sir, is there any role of IHC, immunohistochemistry? Professor Bafna?
Yeah, see, most of the cases with sex cord stromal tumor, they come in stage 1. Almost 80% to 90% will present in stage 1. So absolutely no role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy, unlike in epithelial ovarian tumors. Because most come in stage 1, 80% to 90% present in stage 1. Okay, so absolutely no role for neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Some very rare tumor, sometimes they may come with advanced stage. And even if they come in advanced stage, most of these cases are resectable. So I don't think so there is a role of any neoadjuvant chemotherapy, because these tumors are not very chemosensitive like epithelial tumors. So absolutely no role of neoadjuvant chemotherapy if you are thinking in terms of sex cord stromal tumor.
Rajib sir?
Well, I'm completely against the concept of doing FNAC in an early disease, primarily. And secondly, definitely, as Dr. Bafna said, that there is no role of doing routine. I mean, you can definitely get the diagnosis as sex cord stromal, but there is no well-defined role of NSCT in sex cord stromal cells. And sex cord stromal cells are very chemo-resistant tumors. The main treatment is always surgery, surgery, and surgery.
Thank you for patient sharing.
Okay. Stop your slide share. Now I request Dr. Shushmita Sarkar. Dr. Shushmita Sarkar, she is resident in Gynae Oncology, National Institute of Cancer Research and Hospital. I request Dr. Shushmita Sarkar to present your case. Shushmita, please.
So, am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Yes.
So, respected chairperson and overseas faculties, my teachers and my senior engineers, good evening. I'm Dr. Shushmita Sarkar, working in National Institute of Cancer Research and Hospital.
Slide show. Slide show.
So she is a 55 years menopausal diabetic lady. She consulted with a local consultant with pelvic pain and pervaginal discharge, and had an ultrasound showing right-sided adnexal cell mass. And she underwent a laparotomy followed by total abdominal hysterectomy with right-sided salpingoophorectomy on 13th January of this year. Histopathology was high-grade papillary transitional cell carcinoma of fallopian tube. So it's an incidental diagnosis. She was then referred to National Institute of Cancer Research and Hospital, but she didn't come. She came to our hospital on 10th March with excessive pervaginal discharge for 1 month. She had no family history of breast, ovarian, or endometrial carcinoma, and her bowel and bladder habit were normal. On general examination, she was mildly anemic, non-ecteric, no palpable lymphadenopathy, and breast and thyroid were normal for her age, and her vitals were stable. Abdominally, there was no palpable mass, and pelvic examination revealed vault looked unhealthy with thick discharge. A net closed area was present in the vault, fixed with a soft tissue mass. So, what are the common presentation of fallopian tube carcinoma, as it's a rare carcinoma? So, sir, can you put some light on it, Professor Bafna? What are the common presentation?
Yeah, fallopian tube carcinoma is extremely rare. It is very, very difficult to diagnose preoperatively. But classical symptom, which is described in textbooks, is that patient will have profuse watery discharge, profuse discharge per vagina. That is the classical sign of fallopian tube carcinoma. Okay, and it's very, very rare diagnosis and very difficult to diagnose preoperatively. But nowadays we have good imaging tools. We have a good MRI scan, good CT scan. So definitely you can suspect a fallopian tube or in fallopian tube cancer when you find that the tubes are enlarged and contains any solid component inside, and the ovary is looking normal. So obviously you can suspect it preoperatively if you have a good imaging tool. Otherwise, it's very difficult to diagnose preoperatively.
So, sir, you are 100% right. You are very true that it's very difficult. So, how should we proceed with her, sir? She's a 55 years lady, came with a histopathology report of high-grade papillary transitional cell carcinoma with parvaginal discharge. How should we proceed?
Okay, now this patient has was operated 1 month ago.
Sir, almost
Correct.
3 months ago. 3 months.
3 months ago. Okay, now she has presented with a vaginal discharge, and on clinical examination there is a growth at the vaginal vault.
No, sir. There is no growth. There's only a unhealthy area. It's not a growth,
There's no
sir.
growth.
No.
I think one of your slides showed some tumor in the vault. There's no tumor.
No, sir.
Back slide.
Vault look unhealthy.
Necrosia.
Fixed with a soft tissue mass.
Sir,
Present in vault fixed with a soft tissue mass.
sir, I'll tell you later on.
That means there is a mass at the vault. It
No.
cannot be-
There was no mess. Just the feeling of soft mess. There is no definite mess.
Okay. Then I think the surgery what surgery has been done is not a complete surgery for fallopian tube cancer. So definitely, obviously, I would like to go in again. I would like to go in and do complete surgery. That means what it means is that you have to remove the uterus, the opposite ovary, and the tube. You have to remove the omentum, and you have to remove the pelvic and aortic lymph nodes. And also, if there is any deposit, peritoneal deposits, you have to remove all the visible peritoneal deposit. That is the first aim. Okay, but if there is a growth at the vault, which you cannot resect, then better to go for chemotherapy first before going for a staging laparotomy. But if you are sure that you will be able to do good debulking, optimal debulking, only then you go for a staging laparotomy. You think that it is not possible to do an optimal debulking, then better to go for neoadjuvant chemotherapy.
Sir, we have started our evaluation with reviewing her histopathology report, and it was high-grade papillary transitional cell carcinoma of fallopian tube, limited to stoma only. Her tumor markers CA125, CA19.9, and CEA were within normal limit, and chest X-ray was normal. CT scan of whole abdomen showed in vault area a soft tissue density with heterogeneous enhancement, possibility of locoregional residual or recurrent disease. So, what more investigations have to be done, sir?
Picture, can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, if you look at this image, I think the bladder appears free. I think the tumor is adherent to the bladder, and it is adherent to the rectum also, I think, and adherent to the vaginal vault. Okay, so I don't think it will be possible to debulk it completely. Okay, so I think this imaging is enough for me.
Nothing to be done more than that.
No, I think this imaging is quite good enough for me. I don't have to do an MRI scan or anything else, because I know it will not be possible to do a R0 or a complete debulking. So I would like to go for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy for this case.
She went staging laparotomy on 22nd March in my hospital, and paraoperative findings were omentum and gut walls adherent to the left side of the vault, which we would felt as a soft tissue mass parvaginally. This is the thing we felt parvaginally as a soft tissue mass due to previous operation addition.
So that means there was no deposit at all.
No, no, no.
Okay,
No.
so what we were seeing in the film is adherent gut wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Momentum.
Oh, momentum. Okay, fine.
Left ovarian fallopian tube was apparently healthy, and there was no metastatic deposit in abdominal or pelvic cavity. So peritoneal washing with left-sided salpingoforectomy, with omentectomy, with pelvic and paraortic lymphadenectomy was done with multiple random peritoneal biopsy. So her final histopathology report said there is no malignancy in the left ovarian fallopian tube, omentum, lymph nodes, and peritoneal tissues. So, sir, how will you comment about the aggressiveness of transitional cell carcinoma of fallopian tube? It's a very, very rare case.
Yeah.
So, is it aggressive like high-grade serous carcinoma of fallopian tube?
No, it's a very, very rare tumor, I think, extremely rare. Fallopian tube cancer itself is a rare. And if we talk about transitional cell carcinoma, it's much more rare. So when you have such kind of a diagnosis, better to use some IHC, immunohistochemistry markers. Like you can use P53 markers. So to know whether the tumor is going to behave aggressively or not.
So, Giri sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Would you like to add?
There is some role of ISC here, because it is a rare tumor, and we need to get the real diagnosis whether it is transitional or we have missed somewhere regarding the epithelial carcinoma. That is the only thing we should look to it. And here the role ISC is there. Then we should think of, because it is a aggressive tumor, even if it is localized, there is no extension anywhere. And it is first surgery was done. We do not know what has been done. Whether the tumor was there was capsule ruptured or not, we do not know anything about that. Perhaps we should go for a chemotherapy after ISC. This is my opinion. Dr. Ghosh can add to it.
Yeah, definitely we should talk to our pathologist to have a perfect characterization. Honestly, I have not faced a TCC as of now in routine clinical practice. And since TCC is more common in the urothelial tract rather than the gynecological tract, so in that case, definitely before proceeding, it would be great if we can have some imaging of the bladder as well as the urethra, because that there might be occult primary in the bladder TCC. So the common things needs to be ruled out first. And definitely since this is an advanced disease and we have to treat it with some form of adjuvant, we would extrapolate from the data from urothelial malignancies and treat it with a gemcitabine and cisplatin regimen rather than the standard paclitaxel carboplatin that we routinely give for ovarian cancer.
So, Joydeep sir, do you prefer for a cystoscopy?
I would have personally done a cystoscopy because TCC of the fallopian tube is much more rare than TCC of the urothelial tract with pelvic or peritoneal deposits.
Is it mandatory, sir, for this? Sushmita, is it mandatory for these cases? As because we have opened the cases and the completion surgery was done in that cases, we have explored the whole abdominal cavity and there is bladder there is no deposit. And if it is in that cases, even after that, shall we go for the cystoscopy?
No, if we have evaluated the bladder with imaging also, then I think it's fine. I mean, we really don't need to. It's difficult to have a standard guideline for such very rare malignancies.
Yes,
so my thought process is just to rule out an occult urothelial primary. That's all. If the radiologist feels confident that there are no bladder SOLs anywhere, then it's fine.
I need to know whether it's primary or secondary from the urethral or the bladder or urethral diseases.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly my point, Dr. Giri. That is
yes.
Yeah.
Because after surgery, after the re-exploration, we have found nothing. And so the problem lies now. Perhaps yes.
Another non-invasive investigation that can be done is we can send a urine cytology for malignant cells.
Good idea.
Sir, Joydeep sir, please can you put some words on it?
Yeah. So if it is, if there is any urothelial malignancy underlying, even if it is small one, there is a very small possibility that it might show up in urine cytology. And if the urine cytology is coming positive for transitional, when I say for malignant cells with the characteristics of TCC, then I would definitely go in for a cystoscopy.
I think in last 3 decades or so, I've seen maybe 3 or 4 cases only of transitional cell carcinoma of the ovary, not fallopian tube. Fallopian tube, I don't think I've seen a single case. But transitional cell carcinoma of the ovary, I've seen maybe 3 or 4. And what of these cases do well? What of the cases do well with standard chemotherapy?
And the result is better than the ovarian malignancy. This, if it is fallopian tube carcinoma, the result is little better than the primary ovarian malignancy. But I have seen around 20 cases of fallopian tube carcinoma, whether unilateral or bilateral. I have seen it. It is recorded.
No, I'm talking about transitional cell carcinoma.
No, so I have not seen even one.
I don't remember I've seen
I haven't seen even one.
fallopian tube carcinoma, transitional cell carcinoma. I have not seen. I don't remember.
But this aggressiveness is lower than that of the serous, high-grade serous carcinoma.
No, usually I think transitional cell carcinoma of the ovary, at least they are not very aggressive. Prognosis is thought to be good according to the literature review. Not as aggressive as high-grade serous cancers.
Yes.
They fare better than high-grade serous cancer of the ovary. But difficult to comment
But
because
this one is high grades TCC of fallopian tube. This is high grade now. That is the most important part.
Yeah.
So you have to rule out with some IC.
So, ma'am, should I proceed?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a high-grade TCC of right fallopian tube. That is, it is stage 1A. What would be her adjuvant? Jagdeep sir.
So I don't think we will be able to extrapolate the ovarian principles in this particular case. If it is a 1A, then I would keep it under observation. And if after ruling out that it's not a urothelial, because in urothelial malignancies, if there is a muscle invasive disease, we tend to give adjuvant gemcitabine cisplatin. But this is a no man's land. I mean, everybody is right and everybody is wrong. So I think it's an individual decision. I would keep under follow-up since it's a 1A.
I would
But
like
it
to
is
say
high grade.
here, because in ovarian cancer, even when you have a stage 1A high grade tumor, serious cancer, we tend to give chemotherapy. We don't avoid chemotherapy.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
same logic, probably you may have to use adjuvant chemotherapy.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree that some practitioners would be giving adjuvant gemcitabine cisplatin.
Because we can follow up the patient if it's a grade 1 or grade 2. Now it is a grade 3 disease, high grade disease. Perhaps there is a role of chemotherapy here. If Dr. Ghosh can will agree with me.
Yeah, there might be. Actually, you won't have much data on any such rare malignancy, so that's the problem. I mean, it's difficult to gauge the benefit of chemotherapy in rare tumors, so we tend to extrapolate from common ones.
And not only that, sir, the patient, she was not a good compliant patient. She had undergone surgery and was referred, but she lost. So should we not go for the adjuvant chemotherapy in this type of cases? And we don't know what type of surgery during that time was done, whether there is a rupture of the tumor or there is no operation, no details were written in her discharge certificate. So in that cases, can we, and also in grade 3, in that cases, can we not go for this adjuvant chemotherapy?
Yeah, there is. I'm thinking that there is no harm giving adjuvant chemotherapy, but that will be more like extrapolation from ovary rather than urothelial.
So is there any difference in follow-up for fallopian tube cancer, sir? Just like ovarian cancer?
No, absolutely no difference. I think the standard way of following once in 3 months for first 2 years, then once in 6 months for next 3 years. That is the standard protocol for almost all the solid tumors.
The only difference would be, I don't think CA-125 will be helpful in the follow-up since this is a different histopathology.
CA-125 raises in transitional carcinoma of the fallopian tube.
Yeah, if it is elevated at
So all these things are covered by our speakers. So I don't like to go for primary transitional cell carcinoma fallopian tube is extremely rare. Median age is 56 years. It is mostly asymptomatic, so preoperative diagnosis is very difficult and mostly diagnosed postoperatively. Surgery is the preferred treatment, and there is no guideline for standard treatment because of scarcity of cases. So, Jagdeep sir, it is written that metastatic disease, in case of metastatic disease, cisplatin and gemcitabine, that is the type of the urothelial cancer is chosen. So, do you differ if it is primary fallopian tube cancer? Cisplatin gemcitabine is applicable?
Yes. If I am to give the adjuvant chemotherapy, I would go with cisplatin gemcitabine as the adjuvant, extrapolating from the urothelial malignancies.
So our tumor board decision was adjuvant chemotherapy, paclitaxel and carboplatin. Do you differ, sir? Jagdeep sir?
Yeah, so paclicarbo has also got platinum because the most important drug here is platinum. So even if you give paclicarbo, there is no major harm as such. The patient has to receive platinum in any form. Either it can be gemcis or it can be paclitaxel or paclicarbo.
Thank you. Thank you for patience hearing.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Shushmita. Now I again request Dr. Lima Yasmin to present your second case. Lima, please. As because we are now in a COVID situation, and in that cases, all the medical colleges, there's so much, they are exhausted in their COVID and ops and general gynae patients, and they have the malignant cases. And even after that, and there are not so much facilities available in medical college hospital, and sometimes the patients are so poor. In that cases, if they can present their cases in this platform, I think it will be helpful for them. Now I request again Dr. Lima to present your second case. Lima, please.
Thank you, madam. Now I am going to present my second case. Mrs. X, 60 years, postmenopausal diabetic lady, admitted at Khulna Medical College and Hospital on 23rd March 2021 with the complaints of abdominal distension for 2 months, anorexia for same duration, and constipation for 1 month. He had no family history of breast, ovary, or colon cancer. On general examination, he found that she was cachexia, moderately anemic, non-edematous, and no accessible lymphadenopathy. On para-abdominal examination, huge ascites was present, an ill-defined mass of about 18 weeks size in suprapubic region. On pelvic examination, hard, irregular mass failed through all furnaces. And on parectal examination, an ill-defined mass fell through anterior wall of the rectum and mucosa was free. Some deposits are present in pouch of Douglas. Her ultrasonography of whole abdomen shows huge ascites and with a large complex ovarian mass of about 9 into 7.8 centimeter with pouch of Douglas seedling. Regarding her tumor markers, CA125 was raised and is about 5,160. Her chest X-ray was normal. A cytological study of ascitic fluid shows metastatic adenocarcinoma. And CT scan of whole abdomen suggestive of ovarian growth with peritoneal metastasis with moderate ascites. Sushmita ma'am. Sushmita ma'am.
What further investigation should be done preoperatively or pre-treatment as pre-treatment? Professor Bafna, sir.
Yeah, I don't, I
Sir.
think diagnosis is very obvious here. CA125 is raised, CT scan is showing a large pelvic mass, okay, and there are multiple peritoneal deposits. So I don't see any need for any other additional investigations. This is enough for me. And cytology has also shown that it has malignant cells. So this, I think, this is enough for me. This workup is enough for me. And this particular case, I would
I should
like
go
to.
for a chest X-ray. Chest
Yeah.
X-ray will go.
But
Giri?
sister was
X-ray
normal.
chest.
It was normal, sir.
Should. Okay. Okay.
Sir, do we need to do other tumor markers?
No, I don't think so. When CA 125 is raised, CEA is normal. CEA.
CA 74.
CEA.
CA 125 and CA ratio more than 74.
Okay, CA 74. Then it is, I think, it comes more than 20, more than 25.
Yeah.
The ratio.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely it goes more in favor of ovarian cancer.
Primary ovarian cancer.
The ratio was less than 25, then probably should have gone for colonoscopy. Or whenever you have any symptoms, colonic symptoms, then also you can go for colonoscopy. Routinely, there is no need for doing colonoscopy. Here, the diagnosis based on imaging, based on CA125, it is obvious case of advanced ovarian cancer. So I would not recommend colonoscopy, but if you have any suspicion, then definitely you can go for at least colonoscopy. But you don't have to
But
do
she's
it.
having constipations. She's having constipations, dyspepsia may go in favor of GA malignancy also.
So you
But
may do it. You may do it.
because in 74 CA 74.
Yeah, you may do.
Yes.
You may do in.
Paris should go for that because 74 is quite high. You can think of that.
Correct.
May I go for next slide?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, is core biopsy necessary, sir?
Not necessary. It is not
It is, sir?
necessary, but if you're suspicion, yes, there is no necessity. But if there is suspicion of the that is treatment cytology of ascitic fluid, because again CA is high, perhaps there is a role of whether it is a primary or metastatic. You should think about it, because CA is quite high. We have to exclude GA malignancy.
Next.
Will you not go for the core biopsy?
Core biopsy, rather we should go for a GI workup. Then you can think of core biopsy later on, because it is a we don't know whether it is a primary GI, then it is gone to ovaries, and because CA is quite high. This is my opinion, and GI workup is necessary here.
So this, sir, depending on this investigation, can you go for the chemotherapy in this type of patient in this case?
What we would normally do in our hospital is we would do a IHC on the cell block from the ascitic fluid, because if the IHC is strong, Paxate and WT1 positive, then definitely it's ovarian primary. If it is the Paxate is strongly positive but WT1 is patchy, in that case we routinely do an endometrial biopsy to rule out an endometrial cryptic endometrial primary. So that is the main reason why I would go for an IHC on the cell fluid block. I don't need a biopsy, but I would definitely do a IHC of the cell fluid, ascitic fluid.
But in all centers, from cell block IC is not possible. In that cases, what will you do? If this type of center where the cell block is not possible, in that cases, do you directly go for the chemotherapy, or you will go through the core biopsy and then confirm the histopathology diagnosis? In that situation,
in this in that situation I would still go ahead with a biopsy, because the primary intent of treatment drastically changes if it's an endometrial serous versus if it's an endometrial serous versus an ovarian serous. Although it would be, the treatment modality would be more or less same, but definitely the intent would change. For endometrial it will be 4B, for ovarian it will be 3C. Staging would also change. But if you ask me whether
thinking endometrial, Dr. Ghosh,
yeah, no, I'm not
thinking endometrial.
Why I am saying this is that in a large chunk of cases, since we routinely do IHC of the ascitic fluid, we have found that many patients are patchy WT1 positive. They are not uniformly staining for WT1. In those situations, ideally you should be ruling out an endometrial primary, because endometrial primary serous would have patchy WT1, but an ovarian or a fallopian tube primary will always have a very strong WT1 positivity.
but in this present case of CA, Reg CA is
Yeah, CA 19, CA 125 will anyways be elevated in a
CA,
situation where there
CA.
is extensive peritoneal disease.
I'm thinking of CA is quite high. In the situation of CA 74,
Yeah.
do you think that we should rule out endometrial pathology or GI malignancy, GI pathology?
No, GI malignancy is separate. I'm not saying that ruling out the endometrium, I won't be doing the GI workup. CA is elevated, definitely I'll go for a colonoscopy.
Okay.
But definitely I would want to have the IHC if possible in this situation, and if in resource constraint setting IHC is not possible or biopsy not feasible, this report is sufficient to go ahead with the chemotherapy. That is not a problem.
So then what is the take-home message from this scenario? Like that is the abdominal mass, there is the ascitic fluid, the peritoneal fluid, there is the metastatic adenocarcinoma. And in that cases, not so much high the C125, like 500, 600. In that cases, we will directly go for chemotherapy depending on this metastatic adenocarcinoma with this raised C125, or shall we go for the core biopsy to confirmation of the diagnosis? What is the take-home message for our participant from this platform?
So firstly, I would like to ask my surgical colleagues, why not an upfront surgery? Is there any reason that we cannot do surgery for this patient?
No, definitely we can go for upfront surgery, but as was described in this particular case, she had massive ascites, and her general condition was not very satisfactory. She was cachexic, she was anemic, and most of the patients in our countries, I think, are not very well-to-do. They have hyperproteinemia. So even though surgery is possible, I think this kind of cases where you have massive ascites, better to go for chemotherapy.
Okay, then it's fine. Then in this situation, we do a cytology, prove it as malignancy, adenocarcinoma, and we can go ahead with chemotherapy in a situation where we cannot do the cell block. In a situation where we can do the cell block, I would definitely urge to do the IHC on the cell block.
Yeah, Jaideep, what you said is correct, but cell block and IHC is not mandatory in all the cases, in most situations. It depends on our resources and where we are working. Most of the time, cytology shows adenocarcinoma, CA125 is raised, CT scan shows adnexal mass, diagnosis is straightforward, it is ovarian cancer only. And treatment, I think, would not differ based on IHC. I don't think it will really differ. But nowadays, I think more and more people are talking about somatic BRCA mutation. So for somatic BRCA mutation, they need core biopsy. For peritoneal cytology is not enough to diagnose the BRCA mutation. But how many patients can afford olaparib? So practically, it is very, very difficult in our countries to do IHC and to do somatic BRCA mutation studies. But if you have good resources, definitely, ideally, you should go for IHC. No doubt.
May I go to next slide, madam?
Next slide. Lima, next slide.
Yes, ma'am. So our clinical diagnosis is malignant ovarian tumor, and management plan is consultation in tumor board, neoadjuvant chemotherapy followed by surgery. Thank you for patient sharing.
But my one point, we should exclude GI malignancy first before going for surgery or chemotherapy, because GI chemotherapy and this chemotherapy is different. Because 74 CA is quite high. In that particular situation, perhaps we should exclude GI malignancy and metastatic ovarian malignancy, then going for direct chemotherapy. Because Dr. Ghosh, what is your opinion? Hereditary GI malignancy would have given different chemotherapy.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get your question, Dr. Giri.
Because CA is quite high.
Yes.
You should exclude GI malignancy, GI primary.
Absolutely.
And when they are planning to go for chemotherapy and basing on this cytology report of metastatic adenocarcinoma, we are going in terms of going for paclitaxel or this ovarian chemotherapy.
But right.
Had it been GI,
it could have been different. So I agree to the chemotherapy bit. Yeah, I agree for the chemotherapy.
Mute করেন আবিহা
Yeah, so I took the fact into account that probably the patient already had excluded of any GI malignancies, then only we will go ahead.
Okay.
So where ISC is not possible, in that situation, shall we go for the core biopsy or directly you will give that chemotherapy?
No, after
So if I may,
primary by
Sir.
colonoscopy, directly you can go for chemotherapy. There's no need for core biopsy.
Okay. If GI exclusion is done and there is nothing, then we directly go for
yes,
Yeah.
I would completely agree to that.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Stop your slide share. Now, sir, we have the another case of another, and is a doctor. She's a mother of a doctor, and our senior professor, she requested us to present these cases in this tumor board, and I request for that reason, it is endometrial carcinoma, and for that reason I request Dr. Jakanta Faika to present this the endometrial carcinoma, because our madam, she's our senior madam, she wants to get your decision from this tumor board. It is a case of endometrial carcinoma. Jakanta, please share your slides.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes.
My screens are visible.
Yes.
So, honorable chairperson, respected teachers from home and abroad, and my dear learned audiences, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. I am Dr. Jakanta Faika, Phase B MS resident from Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University, going to present a case on behalf of Professor Saiba Akhtar madam for her further management plan. So my case is Mrs. Afsari Begum, 57 years old menopausal lady, non-diabetic normotensive, presented with postmenopausal bleeding for 1.5 months. And after evaluation on ultrasonography, we found that her uterus, this thickened endometrium, and thickness is about 23.5 millimeter. And on color Doppler, there is vascularity is noted within the endometrium. Both ovaries are normal according to her age. This is the picture of her ultrasonogram. And she underwent fractional curettage on 8th March 2021. And her findings was cervix, there was a small ulceration present, so 4 quadrants biopsy was taken. Uterus was bulky, size of uterine cavity was 6 centimeter, adnexa was normal, and endocervical curettage scanty material came out, and endometrial curettage moderate amount material came out. Histopathology report shows tissue from the cervix, chronic cervicitis, endocervical curettage, mucus and tiny strips of endocervix, and endometrial curettage, serous adenocarcinoma high grade. This is the histopathology report. And in her further evaluation, an MRI of whole abdomen shows endometrial malignancy about 26 into 13 to 31 millimeter with full thickness myometrial invasion at left posterolateral wall with extension into endocervical canal, no extraserosal extension. A small fibroid at posterior wall of the uterus, and no lymphadenopathy or ascites. So she underwent type 2 radical hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy with bilateral systemic pelvic lymphadenectomy with enlarged lower para-aortic lymph node dissection with infracolic omentectomy on 22 March 2021. And perioperative findings was uterus was about 6 weeks size, both tubes and ovaries are healthy looking. And on cut section, endometrial growth about 1 into 1 centimeter present on the right cornu with more than 50% of myometrial involvement. A small intramural fibroid was present and no extension to the cervix was found. So her histopathology report, section from the uterus, endometrial adenocarcinoma, endometrioid type and grade 2. Myometrial invasion was present, and that is more than half of the myometrium. There was no LVSI. Section from the lower uterine segment are free from tumor. Section from the both parametrium are free from tumor. Left pelvic lymph nodes are non-specific reactive changes. Right pelvic lymph node shows non-specific reactive changes. Omentum was free of tumor, and her receptor status shows ER positive, PR positive, and P53 mutation was positive for wild type. So this is her histopathological reports, and now the case is here for the discussion board.
She undergone type 2 hysterectomy. But
Yes, sir. He was underwent type 2 radical hysterectomy as her
it is not a
MR.
The MR the tumor is extended to the endocervix.
Okay. Tumor was extended to the endocervical canal.
But not involved endocervix.
No, sir.
Involved cervix. And type 2 now in either in stage 2 also there is a need of type 2 hysterectomy in the case of say endometrium. Type 1 is do, type 1 will do in all cases. Now they were telling any type, a simple hysterectomy also is quite will suffice the tissue. So there is no need of type 2 hysterectomy in any of the endometrial carcinoma, even if stage 2, unless it has involved the parameter. So that you have to get the 3 parameter margins should be taken. So that part is over, and we have not removed. We have not done systematic pelvic and para-aortic anatomy. Why you have not done? Why you have gone up to lower para-aortic, not up to renal vein? It should have been done. This is the fact, because it was early pre-op diagnosis was high grade adenocarcinoma. No.
Yes, sir. High grade serous adenocarcinoma.
High grade serous adenocarcinoma are usually high grade. But but a serous carcinoma has now become the endometrial carcinoma. That becomes a little bit of. So we should have gone for that. Why there is so much of discrepancy in diagnosis? Because serous carcinoma has become now endometrial carcinoma and grade 2 now. It was a grade 3. Now it has become grade 2. So we should look into the better why it has happened like this. Dr. Bapana, what is your opinion?
Because serous cancer becoming endometrioid cancer is very, very unusual. And in this case, endometrioid cancer, the ER and PR was positive. That means definitely it is either well differentiated or moderately differentiated endometrioid carcinoma. In high grade endometrioid carcinoma, usually ER and PR are negative. They are not positive. In this case, ER and PR was positive. So definitely we are dealing with good tumor, grade 1 or grade 2 tumor. But I'm surprised that a serous cancer becoming endometrioid cancer, very rarely I come across. We don't have such situation.
Yeah. So you have to review the diagnosis, either the first diagnosis or next diagnosis. The post-op or pre-op diagnosis has to be reviewed. Then you can give some idea about it.
We can review the both slides.
Yeah, that's true. That is required.
Review the both slides to another center. Can it be, sir?
No, it can be done at your center. Just review it, just at your center. There is no need of sending it elsewhere. Whereas it will give the better, they should look into it. Why there is discrepancy in diagnosis pre-op and post-op. So grade 3 pre-op endometrioid can become grade 2 post-op.
Yes, sir.
Grade 2 pre-op can become grade 3 post-op. So there is no much of this, but there's a serous carcinoma becoming endometrioid becomes a little bit of, it creates some suspicion in mind. That's the only thing what I like to say. Now, so you review it if it is really papillary serous or it is endometrioid. Accordingly, the adjuvant therapy will think of. You can think of adjuvant therapy to be given or not to be given. And we have removed the enlarged nose.
Zakanta, is it in the same report in the same center?
No, ma'am. Primary report was in the laboratory, not in the same center.
Okay.
The laboratory and a post-op report was from Anwara Medical Services, not from the same center.
Yes.
So report review both the reports at your hospital.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With good pathologist.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
And if it is endometrioid type, then what will be her treatment plan, sir? If it is endometrioid in this age 57 years, and if it is endometrioid type.
So now question is they have removed on the enlarged report the intramesenteric IMA.
Yes, sir.
After below IMA.
Yes, sir. Intramesenteric. Yes, sir.
So they have not gone up to renal because it is when there is a my invasions more than 2 centimeter and more than 50%, perhaps we should go on for the para-aortic. Paraortic, this is high priority, means up to renal vein. But when lymph nodes is negative, pelvic lymph node is negative, perhaps we have done almost right job. Now question comes, what are we going to do now? When lymph node is negative, LVSA is negative, myoin invasion more than 50%, and grade 2 disease. Dr. Ghosh can add something to it.
Yeah, so this is more than 50%. Definitely, our standard protocol in this situation would be adjuvant chemotherapy followed by external beam radiotherapy.
But
Why external beam? Why not brachytherapy, sir?
I am not sure whether only brachytherapy in a high risk would be the right treatment.
Oh, Jaideep, this is not high risk. This is grade 2.
Grade 2.
Cancer,
Yes,
stage 1B, grade 2.
yes.
And
And
there is no
57.
LVSI. So according to me, brachytherapy is enough. There's no need for external RT. There's no need for chemotherapy.
this comes under
Brachytherapy is good enough because you have done a good staging. Pelvic lymph nodes are negative, aortic lymph nodes are negative, momentum is negative. So absolutely no need for external radiotherapy, no need for chemotherapy. This brachytherapy would suffice in this case.
Excuse me, can I add something, Dr. Shahana?
Yes, Dr. Gannathun.
Okay, I am Dr.
Okay.
Jannatul Firdaus. Actually, I am from BSMMU, and I was involved during surgery of this patient. And my question is, actually, if we follow the GOG 99 criteria, then according to that criteria, considering her age, she is 57, presence of one risk factor, that is myoinvasion more than 50%, and absence of LVSI, and grade 2. So I think vaginal brachytherapy, what is the recommendation according to GOG 99? Vaginal brachytherapy is enough. And if you, we can do one thing, that we can do a PET scan in this patient to see whether any residual disease, or obviously according to a suggestion, we can do a review of the slides. And if the slides show similar things, then is it not enough to give vaginal brachytherapy? To Dr. Bafna, Dr. Giri, and Dr. Ghosh.
What's the question? I didn't get a question. What is the question?
Question is, actually, this is according to GOG 99 criteria, considering her age, that is, she's 57, and presence of only one risk factor. That means she is in low intermediate risk group.
Correct.
If we follow the GOG 99 criteria, then if she is in low intermediate group, then the recommendation is to give vaginal brachytherapy in this patient.
Right.
And I want to know if the review slides reveal the same thing as the final histopathology report, then this is enough, that is vaginal brachytherapy is enough.
If it is a serious cancer,
yeah, then
operatively it was serious, post-operatively it was serious,
yeah,
then definitely she would require chemotherapy.
Chemotherapy, right?
Chemotherapy.
Yeah.
Gannathun.
Now question is whether to add radiotherapy or not. So
Yes,
there
sir.
have been recent trials now. They have compared chemotherapy to chemotherapy plus radiotherapy. They found no difference. So I think chemotherapy is good enough, especially when the nodes are negative. It's better to go only for chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy of choice would be paclitaxel and carboplatinum.
Sakanta slide share বন্ধ করেন.
Okay, thank you for patient sharing. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. As there is a Tarabi prayer and there is a long time prayer, so our president, he has already left, and also the scientific secretary. Thank you very much, sir, for a long time you are with us, and we request you in future. We are very much grateful to you. Thanks again, sir, for your
Thank you, madam.
kind attendance.
Dr. Shahana, Saiba madam is here. Do you want to hear something from her?
Madam?
No, actually, I have Sana,
sir, madam.
Sana, just thank you so much for presenting this case. Actually, my question was that if it is Sarah, if the repeat review slide report comes, it is Sarah's, then what should we do? I already got the answer from the experts. My heartfelt thanks and gratitude to you. So,
Thank you, madam. Now, madam, I want to request Dr. Shamsul Nahar Laki. She is professor and head of the Department of Khulna Medical College Hospital, and the presenting medical college in this tumor board is Khulna Medical College. I request Dr. Shamsul Nahar Laki, madam, to comment on these tumor board sessions and the program. Dr. Shamsul Nahar Laki, madam, please. Lima? Lima?
जी madam.
Madam Asin, madam?
Maybe not. Madam Jannatul Firdaus madam is present here.
Oh, probably Dr. Shamsul Nahar Laki madam, she is busy in another session. So I request Dr. Jannatul Firdaus. She is assistant professor from Khulna Medical College Hospital in Department of Obs and Gynae. She is regularly with our program. I request on behalf of the Dr. Shamsul Nahar Laki to Dr. Jannatul Firdaus to comment to this session.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Hello.
You are audible, yes.
Yes. Very good evening and respected members of the Oncology Club, President and Secretary of the Oncology Club, and respected international faculties from India and on-learned participants joining here. Assalamu alaikum. And I think this is a very important academic platform to share and exchange our views. We through this tumor board, we learned a lot, and there are some techniques and disciplines regarding the management and diagnosis and treatment of this patient that will be applied more authentically day by day by exchanging our views. And on behalf of my head and professor of Obs Gynae, Professor Shamsul Nahar Laki ma'am, I convey greetings to all learned participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abba. Thank you very much. Now I request Dr. Fatima Shorna to show the poll questions, please. And all the participants are requested for poll voting, please. Now it is 30 minutes for each, 30 seconds for each questions. – 72% correct. Second question. It is 83% correct. The third question. Third question.
This question is A and C together. So there is a problem here.
10% A and C 20%. Now it is the end of the poll voting. Now please show the winner. Sharna, please. Sharna.
ম্যাম উইনার
Yes, yes, winner.
ম্যাম উইনার তো এখনো বের করে নেই সরি ম্যাম একটু 5 minutes মানে I put the winner's name in the chat box, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Every day as you do.
Okay, ma'am.
Show the winner's name on the chat box.
Ma'am, the 3 winners are Arnab, Dr. Arnab, Dr. Dalia Akhtar, and Dr. Fatima Ashraf.
Why are you not showing this? Can you not show the name?
Ma'am, actually last oncology program আমাদের হচ্ছে উইনারটা হয় নাই তো so I didn't make the slides today.
নাম বলেন আবার?
Ma'am, I have already written the names in the chat box. Arnab, Dr. Arnab, Dr. Dalia Akhtar, and Dr. Fatima Ashraf.
Fatima Ashraf, madam, and Dalia Akhtar, and Dr. Mohammed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our recent professor, Dr. Sabera Khatun, madam, she is professor, ex-professor and head department of Gynae Oncology, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University. Madam joined at the end of the session. Madam, do you like to comment to this session? Madam, please.
I have not had throughout the whole session, but last question, the quiz, I have liked. It is very much interesting and very much appraising for the junior doctors to give such type of quiz. And I think this will encourage the junior doctors to learn the very specific answer as they have to be face in their FCPS exam this type of small answer type question in written question that they will have to face in the FCPS part 2 final examination. I think they should learn this type quiz to face the examination. So thank you very much, Shana, and thank you our guest panelists, foreign panelists, to give their time in this such type of educational program. Thank you very much, Dr. Shana.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for joining with us, and we are also very much grateful to you that you are always in every week you are with our interactive session for our students. And today we want to end the session because the chairperson, scientific secretary, everybody are there in their prayer. So I am grateful to all the Pune Medical College Hospital, the presenting hospital, all the senior teachers, our faculties, the guest faculties, and I request you all to stay with us in our future session. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sharna, please end this.